To protect my pregnant girlfriend, I beat up the man who was harassing her and got arrested. I thought it was just a normal fight. I figured they'd take my statement and let me go. But then, the officer told me I'd ruptured one of the guy's kidneys. His family demanded 3,000,000 yuan in compensation. Otherwise, they'd sue me and make sure I went to prison for years. Back in 1993, 2 yuan could buy a whole hen. 3,000 yuan meant 1,500 chickens. My dad died early, and my mom remarried. With no one around to keep an eye on me, I became a street kid. Where was I supposed to get that kind of money? The other side said no money, no deal. So, no surprise, I was sentenced to 4 years in prison for intentional injury. For the first 2 months, my girlfriend Qingtai came to see me now and then. Then she stopped coming for a while. When she finally came back, she looked awful. Her stomach was flat again. That was when I found out her family had discovered she was pregnant and forced her to get an abortion. She had snuck out behind their backs just to come see me and say she was sorry. I regretted everything. I slapped myself and cursed at myself. If I'd just stopped that night, instead of going too far, I wouldn't have gone to prison, and Qingxi wouldn't have been dragged away by her family to get an abortion. Later, Qingxi told me she'd wait for me to get out. We pressed our hands against the glass between us, and I swore to myself that one day, I'd give her a good life. I had no idea we'd eventually be separated by death. 4 years later, I was released. After getting out, I found a job washing dishes at a restaurant. I cleaned myself up, used the money I'd saved making paper boxes in prison, bought a box of gifts, and went to Qingxi's house. Qingxi opened the door. She was thrilled to see me. Her dad was watching TV in the living room. Without turning around, he asked, "Who is it?" When he saw it was me, he gave a cold snort and went back to watching television. Her mom came out of the kitchen, curious to see who had arrived. The moment she saw me, she turned right around and went back inside. I lowered my head, feeling ashamed. Qingxi said, "They're just busy. Come in." She took the gifts from me, put them on the coffee table, and guided me towards the sofa. Qingxi had barely opened her mouth to say something to her dad when he picked up the remote and turned off the TV. "Don't call me for dinner," he said, then went into his room. Before coming here, I'd expected her dad not to welcome me. I just hadn't expected it to be this bad. The thought of him skipping dinner because of me made me so uncomfortable I couldn't sit still. After thinking it over, I decided to leave. I stood up. "Maybe I came at a bad time. I'll come back another day." Qingxi looked helpless. "I'll walk you out." But just as she finished speaking, her mom came over. "You're leaving?" "Then we won't keep you. Qingxi, come help me for a second." I knew exactly what she meant. She wanted Qingxi to stay. Qingxi could only nod. I left and walked back toward my tiny 40 square meter rental. There weren't many streetlights back then. You'd walk dozens of meters before finding another one. The road ahead was dark, and I had no idea what my future would look like. Washing dishes barely paid anything, and the work was dull as hell. 4 years earlier, I never could have imagined living such a repetitive, boring life. But now, I'd somehow gotten used to it. Maybe prison had worn down my temper. More than 20 days later, I got my first month's pay. Only 400 yuan. I went to the market, bought 2 yellow-feathered chickens and a box of tea, and prepared to visit Qingxi's family for the second time. When I got downstairs to her building, I saw a cart selling oranges, so I bought another 2 gin of them. By the time I was done, both hands were full. While climbing the stairs, I worried about ruining her dad's dinner again. So I decided I'd drop off the gifts and leave immediately. Qingxi greeted me at the door with a huge smile. "Why did you buy so much stuff?" "The chickens and tea are for Uncle and Auntie." "Give those to me. I'll carry them." "Those chickens might scratch you." Qingxi took the things from my right hand and placed them on the coffee table. Then she carried the 2 live chickens from my left hand into the kitchen. A moment later, I heard her talking with her mom. 2 chickens? "Yep. Are they hens? Can they lay eggs?" "They should. Then we'll raise them first. If neither one lays eggs by New Year's, we'll make chicken soup." Hearing the 2 of them talk, I felt like Qingxi's mom wasn't in such a bad mood this time. Still, it was only my second visit. I didn't dare stay too long. I was scared Uncle would run off to his room again because of me. So I said, "Uncle, I should get going." Her dad didn't scold me. He looked like he was studying me. "You're leaving already?" I gave an awkward smile. I bought too much stuff today, so I thought I'd bring some over for you. Now that I've delivered it, I should head out." Then I turned around, stepped outside, and pulled the door shut. When I reached the second floor, I heard Qingxi running after me. I stopped and listened as her footsteps got closer. When she reached me, she was holding a red plastic bag. She pulled out a pair of gloves. "It's freezing, and you wash dishes in cold water. Don't be silly and wear only rubber gloves." Put these wool gloves on underneath the rubber ones. Your hands won't get cold that way. She paused, then added, I was making you a scarf too, but I haven't finished it yet. Once it's done, I'll bring it to you. My eyes instantly turned red. A woman this good. I knew I'd never meet another one like her in my entire life. Maybe I'd been holding in too much during that time. I couldn't control myself anymore, and I suddenly started crying. Chinxi stood one step above me, pulled me into her arms, and comforted me like I was a child. All right. You're doing great. You didn't see my mom today. She was in such a good mood. And when I came out, my dad didn't even stop me. They're giving you a chance. That only made me feel worse. I cried even harder in Chinxi's arms. After I'd cried enough, I stood straight again and told her, then I'll come back next time. Okay, but next time, don't bring so much stuff. Just coming is enough. After that, I went downstairs and walked out of the alley. For some reason, the road home felt much brighter than before. And with the gloves on, my hands didn't feel cold at all. After that, I visited Chinxi's home more often, every few days or so. But I stopped bringing gifts. Instead, I brought things like light bulbs and water pipes. Whenever Chinxi came to see me at the restaurant, she'd sometimes mention that a light at home wasn't working, a pipe was leaking, or the bedboards were squeaking. I knew how to fix those things, so whenever I had a break, I'd go over and take care of them. Chinxi's mom was a housewife and stayed home most of the time. Her dad was a skilled worker at a state-owned machinery factory. Whenever I came by, he was usually at work, so our schedules worked out perfectly. Maybe because I kept coming over to fix things, Chinxi's mom started treating me much better. One afternoon, after I just finished replacing a water pipe, she handed me a hot towel to wipe my face and hands. Aya Shuyi, you've worked hard. Whenever I ask Uncle to fix something, he puts it off forever. Now you've fixed everything. The restaurant is slow at lunch. I'd already finished washing the dishes. You're a good kid, she said. Chinxi told me everything. You fought that man back then because he was bullying Chinxi. You stood up for her. Deep down, you're a good person. I felt ashamed. No one had cared about me since I was 15. I spent my days hanging around streets and alleys. I never imagined that one day, someone would call me a good kid. Just then, the living room door opened. I heard Chinxi's dad's voice. Honey, they handed out New Year's supplies at work. Then I saw him walk in carrying rice, cooking oil, cured meat, and festive candy. We ran right into each other. He looked at me. Why are you here? I suddenly went mute. I couldn't say a word. Chinxi's mom came out to smooth things over. He's been coming during his afternoon break to help around the house. You think those broken lights, furniture, and pipes fixed themselves? You come home every day and just watch TV. You never do housework. Shuyi fixed all of it. After hearing that, Chinxi's dad frowned even harder and started looking me over. I felt uncomfortable, so I made an excuse. There might be more dishes now. I should get back to work. I was about to leave when Chinxi's dad called out to me. I froze on the spot, but his next sentence caught me completely off guard. Come over for dinner after work. At first I was stunned. Then I became happy. Then, for some reason, I felt like crying. I quickly turned around and bowed to him. Thank you, Uncle. He waved his right hand in the air, sounding both annoyed and oddly warm. All right. Go on. When I looked up, I saw Chinxi smiling behind her mom. We looked at each other for a moment, then I went back to work. I was happy, really happy. Even years later, whenever I thought about that moment, it was still one of the softest memories in my heart. On Lunar New Year's Eve in 1997, I spent the holiday at Chinxi's house. When Chinxi invited me, I didn't dare go at first. It was New Year's Eve. Everyone would be having their reunion dinner, and I was afraid I'd ruin the mood. But Chinxi told me, my dad asked you to come. I was completely confused. The month before, when I'd gone to dinner at Chinxi's house, her dad had kept his head down and eaten without saying a word. I thought I'd made him uncomfortable. I never expected I'd get invited again. My dad is like that, Chinxi told me. He acts impulsive and talks tough, but he's soft-hearted. He always says he won't agree to us being together, but he respects my choices. Otherwise, how do you think I dared bring you home right after you got out of prison? Then she taught me what to do. When you come on New Year's Eve, buy 2 cartons of Hongtashan cigarettes. My dad likes those. He'll be in a much better mood when he sees them. And bring my mom a jar of honey. So on New Year's Eve, I did exactly as Chinxi said. I bought 2 cartons of Hongtashan cigarettes and a jar of honey. Her parents' expressions really did soften. As soon as I came in, Uncle, who was watching TV, pressed the remote, pointed at the cigarettes, and gave me a look. I nodded quickly and handed him the cigarettes. Happy New Year, Uncle. Good. Sit down. I pointed toward the kitchen. I brought something for Auntie too. Good, go on. Then come back and watch TV with me. I walked into the kitchen and put the bag beside the cutting board. Auntie, someone came to our restaurant selling wild mountain honey, so I bought you a jar. Her eyes lit up. She was thrilled. Oh my, look how clear the color is. What kind is it? Black locust honey. Yes, that's good stuff. It needs to go in the fridge. Xu Yi, you came for dinner and still brought something this nice. She carried the jar to the fridge. Xingxi was cutting vegetables nearby. We looked at each other, and she smiled at me as if to say, "See? Told you it would work." I just nodded. When dinner started, I remember it clearly. Her dad opened a bottle of Beiju and asked Auntie to bring out 2 cups. "Can you drink?" he asked me. I held my thumb and index finger apart in a small C shape. Just a little. Maybe the gap I showed was a little too wide, because Uncle's eyes lit up. Oh, that much? That's 3 or 4 liang. And just like that, he poured me a drink. The New Year's dinner had 6 dishes and 1 soup. There was a plate of sliced braised pork knuckle that was especially good. Xingxi kept putting more into my bowl. At first, I felt embarrassed, but her dad said, "You need to eat. Don't drink on an empty stomach. It's bad for your stomach." I nodded and started drinking with him. Every time I finished a cup, he poured me another. Later, he asked about my life. Maybe it was the alcohol, but I couldn't keep my feelings hidden anymore. "I know your dad died early and your mom remarried," he said. "When did that happen?" "My dad died when I was 13. My mom remarried when I was 14. After that, my grandpa raised me, but he passed away in 1989. Do you have any other family?" "No." "Then how did you survive afterward?" "I didn't really. I had no money. Even the house was taken by my mom. I had no choice, so I collected bottles. Later, I hung around with homeless people and became a street kid. I did some petty stealing too." At that point, Xingxi patted me under the table. At first, I didn't understand what she meant, so I looked at her. Then she patted me again and gave me a look. I still didn't get it. That was when her dad slammed his glass down on the table and said to Xingxi, "What are you doing? Are you embarrassed?" Xingxi didn't say anything. "What's embarrassing about it? What man hasn't made mistakes when he was young? So what if he stole a few things? If you think he's shameful, then don't be with him." Then he turned to me. "Xu Yi, drink." That was when I finally understood. Xingxi was afraid her dad would misunderstand me. I raised my glass and took a sip. Her dad put more food in my bowl and said, "Back then, you were forced by life. There was nothing you could do. I can tell you're good at heart." Xingxi told me about the time you went to prison for beating that man. He was touching her and harassing her. You weren't wrong. You did the right thing. He raised his glass again. "A man sometimes has to do what a man has to do." Then he continued, "But you were young and didn't understand things. You've served your time now. It's time to grow up and be mature." He looked at me seriously. "In a family, the man is the pillar. Before doing anything, a man has to think it through. Look at what happened when you beat that man and went to prison. Did you ever think about what your family would do while you were locked up?" Of course you didn't have family then. But I mean in the future. If something like that happens again and you go to prison, what happens to your family? Right? My nose stung and I nodded. Uncle saw my red eyes, sighed deeply, and patted me on the back. "Every young person makes mistakes. The important thing is correcting them and turning your life around." Then he said, "I only have 1 daughter. I didn't want to marry her off this early, but she's grown up now. I think you young people should settle down sooner. That way, you'll have something to look forward to." He said a lot that night, but there was one sentence I remembered most. Xingxi handed me tissues and wiped my face and nose. I looked up at Uncle and said, "Uncle, I don't have money." Uncle suddenly slapped the table, stood up, and pointed toward Xingxi's room beside the living room. "People with money have one way of living. People without money have another. I'm willing to marry my daughter to you because you're steady. Xingxi's room is big enough to be your wedding room. We don't want a bride price, and you don't need to hold a wedding banquet. After the new year, go get your marriage certificate. From now on, call me Dad." I cried even harder. I had never cried that intensely in my life. I jumped to my feet, hugged him tightly, and shouted, "Dad!" I remember stomping my feet with excitement. After that, I drank too much and had no idea what happened. The next time I woke up, it was the following day. I was lying in Xingxi's bed. There's not much else to say after that. After the new year, Xingxi and I really did get married. On my first day back at the restaurant, I handed out wedding candy to my co-workers and the boss. The boss's wife asked, "What's the good news?" I said shyly, I got married." The boss patted me after hearing that. "You got married and didn't invite me for drinks?" "You just hand out wedding candy." "That's not very nice." I lowered my head and said humbly, "We didn't have a wedding. We just got the certificate." The boss's wife ran a restaurant, so she understood how life worked. She let out a long sigh and walked away. I felt pretty complicated inside. I turned around and went to wash dishes in the back. But when work ended that night, the boss's wife quietly called me over from behind the counter. When I reached her, she said, "You're married now. You're not just some young kid anymore. You have a family to support. How much money can you make washing dishes? Starting tomorrow, work in the kitchen as an apprentice. Your pay will stay the same for now. Once you learn properly, I'll raise it." I was moved and quickly said, "Thank you, boss." Then she stuffed a red envelope into my hand. Getting married is a big deal. It happened so suddenly. I didn't have time to prepare anything. "Here, take this red envelope. I hope your married life is prosperous and happy." I looked at the red envelope. It had "Great luck in marriage" written on it. I knew she had put it together at the last minute, but it still meant so much. "Thank you, boss. And take these 2 bottles of Beiju home for your father-in-law. He's a good man. You need to treat him well." "Yes," I said. "I definitely will." On the way home, I opened the red envelope and looked inside. There were 400 yuan in it, an entire month of my salary. When I got home, I gave the money to Qingqi. She stared at it. "Wow, why is there so much?" The boss's wife gave me a red envelope and wished us a happy marriage. She also told me to work in the kitchen. She said she'll raise my pay later. Qingqi smiled. "See, things will get better. You have to work hard for them." Then she said, "My mom bought some wedding decorations this morning. She also bought us a red bedding set. Go look, it's already on the bed," I corrected her. "It's our mom." Qingqi looked at me in surprise, then threw herself into my arms with a laugh. Right, our mom. By May 1999, I had become one of the restaurant's junior cooks. I made more than 700 yuan a month, and every night after work, I could bring home a few dishes I'd cooked for a late-night snack. After more than a year together, my father-in-law and I had become like family. The neighbors called me a live-in son-in-law, but I didn't care. So what if I was? I had no family of my own. Finding one for myself wasn't a bad thing. One day, I came home from work carrying food I'd cooked. The moment I walked in, I saw my father-in-law and mother-in-law sitting at the table, smiling happily at Qingqi. At first, I didn't know what was going on, but when I came in, both of them smiled at me. My mother-in-law's eyes curved into little crescents as she waved me over. Even I wasn't dumb enough to miss it. "Can it be?" I asked, "Mom, Qingqi's pregnant." My mother-in-law nodded repeatedly. I hurried over and asked Qingqi, "Really? You're pregnant?" She nodded too. "Morning sickness," she said. I threw up several times this afternoon. Mom's taking me to the hospital tomorrow for a checkup. I was happier than I'd ever been. That year, I was a 28. I felt like I had reached the peak of my life. 6 years earlier, I had nothing. Now I had a steady job, a home, parents, a wife, and soon, a child. I truly thought my life was perfect. I wished it could stay that way forever. Even years later, after I'd become wealthy, whenever I looked back, the happiness I had at that moment still felt priceless. But you know how life is. It always rises and falls. Maybe I had climbed too high back then, because when I fell hard. Looking back, I suffered 4 major disasters in my life. The first was going to prison in 1993. The second was losing Qingqi. In January 2000, around New Year's Day, the restaurant was extremely busy. And it stayed busy for more than 10 days after that. Normally, I got off at 9 p.m. During that stretch, I worked until 2 in the morning. By the time I got home, it was 3. Then, I'd sleep for a few hours and rush back to the restaurant by 10. I had no life at all. It was exhausting, but the pay was good. Since the restaurant was making money, the boss's wife gave out monthly bonuses too. Whenever I brought my wages home, Qingqi would be surprised. "Wow, that much?" I'd wipe away my sweat and say, "Business has been good these past few months, so the bonuses are bigger. If you work like this for another 2 years, we'll be able to buy a house." It's not that easy. Housing prices are rising fast. They change every day. In a few years, this money might not even be enough. Then we should buy you some nutritional supplements. Being pregnant isn't easy. You're 8 months along now. 7 months. I'm still more than 10 days away from 8 months. My memory is terrible. You have your checkup tomorrow. Let Mom take you, okay? The restaurant is too busy. I can't get away. Mom left this morning. Some relatives out of town had a funeral. It's okay, it's okay. Go to work. I'll see how I feel tomorrow. If I need to, I can delay the checkup a few days. I was worried. Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine. Look at my belly. The baby's healthy. Then Qingqi, who was sitting on the bed, suddenly wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. This is my first baby. I'm scared. I turned around and gently patted her back. I'm scared too. If it hurts too much when the time comes, we'll get a C-section. I can't let you suffer too much. No. The neighbor said C-section babies aren't as smart. I want our son to be smart. One day, I want him to study abroad and run a big company. Okay, I said. He will. Hubby, why are you so good to me? You're the good one. You're the best person I've ever met. That day became the hardest day of my life. There were lots of customers at lunch, and the restaurant kitchen was chaos. Then the boss's wife got a phone call and rushed into the kitchen. Shu Yi! I was still cooking. What is it, boss? She grabbed my attention urgently. Your father-in-law's workplace called. They said your wife had an accident on her way to her prenatal checkup. She's being resuscitated at the hospital. They told you to get to the second floor of the city hospital immediately. I threw down the spatula and ran out. I flagged down 2 rides, but nothing felt fast enough. By the time I reached the hospital, I saw my father-in-law pacing outside the operating room. I rushed over and asked, Dad, what happened? He shook his head. The hospital had called him too. He didn't know what was going on either. A nurse opened the operating room door. I stopped her, but she only said, Don't stop me. The patient is being resuscitated. Every second matters. Then she ran off. A few minutes later, she returned with a doctor and rushed back into the operating room. I was so anxious I kept stomping my feet. My father-in-law clutched his chest and said, When my high blood pressure got so bad, one of my blood vessels burst. They didn't call in this many doctors. What's going on in there? Hearing that made me panic even more. I found a nurse waiting outside and asked, My wife is inside. Can't I go in? Don't husbands go in when their wives are having babies? That's what they show on TV. The nurse looked at me and said, On TV, they're giving birth. Your wife isn't giving birth in there? They're trying to save her life. The moment I heard that, my heart sank. Xingxi had said she might postpone her checkup. How did she suddenly end up in the hospital? My father-in-law and I waited for a long time. By the time it was almost dark, the door finally opened. A doctor came out, looking grave. Are you both family members of the patient? We nodded. The doctor took out a consent form. The mother is 7 months pregnant and previously had an abortion. This fall caused massive bleeding and triggered premature labor. We may not be able to save her. We're doing everything we can to protect the baby. One of you needs to sign the consent form. I didn't dare sign it. My father-in-law nearly collapsed and started shouting. What do you mean you can't save her? How could it be this serious? The doctor explained. Her previous abortion doesn't appear to have been performed at a proper hospital. It caused complications. Her condition is very dangerous. My father-in-law's face turned pale. I glanced at him, but this wasn't the time to ask questions. If I sign this, I asked the doctor, does that mean you'll give up on my wife? No, the doctor said. If there's hope, we will save her. I nodded. Then please, doctor, if you have to choose, save the mother. The doctor took the consent form and went back into the operating room. An hour later, the light outside the operating room turned green. A nurse told us to go inside. That was when I saw Qingqi lying on the hospital bed, pale as paper, with a newborn baby beside her. My mind went blank. I heard Qingqi's weak voice. Shu Yi! My father-in-law and I rushed to her side and held her hand. But her eyes could barely focus on us. Shu Yi! I shouldn't have gone out alone. It's all my fault. The doctor said it's a boy. I won't be able to stay with him anymore. You can't find him a stepmother. You can't. I cried so hard I couldn't speak. Finally, I forced out one sentence through clenched teeth. Okay, it's not your fault, Qingqi said. You need to live peacefully from now on. You have to live a long life. Tell Mom I love her sweet and sour ribs. She has to make them for her grandson. My father-in-law couldn't even cry out loud. His mouth trembled open. I knew he blamed himself. Okay, he said. We'll do everything you said. Shu Yi. What should our son be called? I shook my head. I don't know. I'm too stupid. I was waiting for you to name him. You have to hold on. Call him Shu Yun, she whispered. I hope he grows up talented, capable, and rich. He will, I said. He definitely will. You can't find him a stepmother. You have to be good to our parents. And you have to keep loving me. I finally broke down. Qingxi, don't die. Please don't die. If you don't die, I'll do anything. This time, she didn't answer me. Instead, the heart monitor let out a piercing, continuous sound. That night, I signed her death certificate and my son's birth certificate with the same pen. I held Shu Yun for a while, before the nurse took him to the nursery. My father-in-law cried in the morgue. I stayed silent for a long time. Then I stood up and walked toward the exit. Dad, I said, I'll give you an explanation. When he saw how furious I looked, he hurriedly asked, Where are you going? I asked the nurse. She said someone pushed Qingqi. I'm going to find out who did it. Call the police, he said. Leave it to them. I shook my head. Don't worry about this. I'll give you an answer. Then I left. No matter how loudly my father-in-law called after me, I never looked back. I had only told him half the truth. Someone had indeed pushed Ching-Chi. 4 thugs had done it. If I went to the police, those 4 wouldn't face serious charges. There might not even be enough evidence to prove they had done it. But there was no way I could pretend none of it had happened. I had spent 4 years in prison. While I was there, I met a lot of people who lived in that world. I found a few old cellmates and asked around. Eventually, I got information. They told me that 4 bald thugs had been harassing a pregnant woman in an alley in broad daylight. She slipped down a slope, and afterward, the 4 of them ran. The woman was taken away by an ambulance. I asked where they were and what their names were. They gave me the address of a bar where I could find them, along with the names of all 4 men. As I walked through an alley, I pulled a steel pipe from behind someone's shoe rack and metal beam. When I reached the bar, I saw the bouncers at the entrance. I slid the pipe into my sleeve and slipped inside. Once I was in, I took out the note and asked the bartender about the 4 names. The bartender glanced at it and pointed to a table where 4 men were sitting. I walked over, stood in front of them, read out their names, and asked if it was them. One of them acted cocky. "Who the hell are you?" I only asked, "Was it you?" "Yeah, it was us." I nodded. "Good. I found the right people." Then I pulled out the steel pipe and started swinging at the nearest one. That night, I tore the bar apart. Someone said I was the husband of the pregnant woman who had died. So the bouncers didn't actually stop me. They just stood nearby and pretended they were trying to. After a hard fight, I knocked all 4 men down. Then I smashed all of their left forearms. "I don't care which hand you use to push my wife," I told them. "I'm only breaking your left hands. I'm leaving your right hands intact so you can still make a living." Half the bar's customers ran away. The rest stayed to watch. After breaking their arms, I sat down at the scene to catch my breath. I understood the rules. I had caused trouble in someone else's place, so I would accept whatever consequences came with it. But I had to beat them. "You guys didn't stop me," I said to the bouncers. "That's real loyalty." "Thanks, brothers." Then I handed them cigarettes. The bouncers took them and looked at each other, then looked toward a man standing nearby. I followed their eyes. He was probably the owner of the place. The man looked at me and said, "Someone told me you'd come tonight." "He told me what happened to you." "Half the people in this circle already know your story." "Brother, your child is still in the hospital. You didn't break much in here. Just 1 glass table. I'll make those 4 men compensate you. I'll handle this for you. Go back to the hospital and see your child." I stared at him in surprise, then turned sideways and clasped my hands in thanks. "You're a good man." "Thank you." Then the others came over, helped me up, and escorted me outside. When I got back to the hospital, my father-in-law had fallen asleep on a bench outside the morgue. I sat beside him and kept Ching-Chi company through the night. The next day, my mother-in-law rushed back after receiving the news. When we saw her at the hospital, her nose was bleeding and her knees were scraped up. It looked like she had fallen on the way there. The moment she saw us, she asked, "Where's my daughter? Where's Ching-Chi?" My father-in-law had calmed down a little by then, but her question made him cry soundlessly again. After taking a few shaky breaths, he told her, "It's all my fault. The doctor said her earlier abortion left complications. Such a good person. Gone." My mother-in-law took 1 sharp breath, rolled her eyes, and fainted. Her blood pressure suddenly dropped, and her life was in danger, so she was admitted to the hospital. While my father-in-law was looking after her, someone knocked on the door of our hospital room. It was a man in a suit. None of us knew him, so we ignored him at first. But then he called my name. "Is Mr. Shuyi here?" I turned around in surprise and studied him carefully. I didn't remember ever seeing him before. "Dad, maybe he needs something from me. I'll go talk to him." My father-in-law looked at me. "Do you remember what you told me that year when you first came out of prison?" I nodded. "I remember. I have a family now. I'll be careful about what I do." Outside, in a small park near the hospital, the suited man introduced himself. "My name is Liu Ben. People on the street call me Brother Liu. The 4 men you beat up work for me." I lowered my head. "I heard about you while I was inside. You own a place and do all kinds of business. Did you come to demand an explanation for them?" "Brother, you misunderstand. If you say the word, I'll cripple their other hands too." "That won't be necessary," I said. "Leave their right hands so they can eat." "I know the whole story," Brother Liu said. "I failed to control my men. What happened to your wife is something I owe you for." He took out money. "Here's 10,000 yuan. I know it isn't enough, but please take it as a small gesture from me." I was stunned. This man, a major figure whose businesses were spread across the city, was actually lowering his head and offering me money. I didn't take it. It felt like if I accepted the money, the whole thing would somehow become something else. Brother Liu shoved it into my hands anyway. Brother, I asked around about you. Everyone around me says you're a man with blood in your veins. A good man. You beat 4 people by yourself. 1 only broke their left arms and didn't kill anyone. You have principles. Society needs more people like you. I know you have a family now, but raising a child costs money. I sincerely want you to work for me. I won't treat you badly. I looked at the 10,000 yuan in my hands and shook my head. Thank you, Brother Liu, but I'd be ashamed to call myself your brother. I can't work for you. I'm a cook now, and my life is fine. Besides, my wife is watching from above. She wouldn't want to see me mixed up with people from the streets again. Brother Liu nodded after hearing that. No problem. Here's my card. If you ever need something, come find me here. Just give them your name, and you'll be able to see me. If it's something I can handle, I'll help. He gave me his business card. I took it and said, thank you. After he left, I looked at the card and thought I'd never have a reason to use it. Then I took the money and went back to the hospital room. Later, my wife was cremated. We finished the paperwork, and my mother-in-law was discharged. Although Xu Yun had been born prematurely, he was healthy. The hospital allowed us to bring him home. The moment we opened the front door, saw the room where Xingdi and I had slept, we all started crying. When the adults cried, the baby cried too. But there was nothing we could do. Life had to go on. At night, Xu Yun slept with my parents-in-law. I sat alone at the edge of the bed. That night, the moon looked so far away. I took out Qingqi's clothes and folded them. I put on the gloves and scarf she had made for me. I remembered her sticking medicated patches on my lower back. I remembered how she threw up so much during pregnancy that she couldn't eat. I remembered all the times I was so exhausted that I lay in her arms like a child. I sat on her side of the bed like an idiot all night. I still couldn't accept that she was gone. Every time I turned and saw that empty bed, it hurt more than I could bear. I never understood what it meant to miss someone until it physically hurt. Now it felt like my heart was being torn apart. I cried several times every night. I still couldn't accept the life without Qingti. The Spring Festival of 2000 was the hardest holiday I ever lived through. While she was pregnant, Qingti had knitted several sets of clothes, pants, shoes, and hats for our child. During the new year, Xu Yun wore all of them. I held him in front of Qingqi's portrait. Wife, look, our son's eyes really look like yours. Saying it made my heart ache. I could even hear my mother-in-law quietly wiping her tears. But I had to report to my wife. From then on, every year, I would report to her. I couldn't let her worry about our child from heaven. The days passed one by one. One night, I came home from work and found my father-in-law drinking alone at the dining table. I had brought home a few side dishes, so I walked over. He called me over too. After I sat down, he took out a bank book. My eyes went wide. Dad, what is this? He held up his hand, telling me not to speak yet. Son-in-law, I'll retire in a couple of years. Your mom and I have always had a habit of saving money. At first, we saved it for our son, but he died in an accident. Later, we planned to leave it to our daughter. Now our daughter is gone too. We're old. We can't keep saving forever. You're a man now, and you're a father. You need to take responsibility. I'm giving you this money. Whether you use it to start a business, work, or just keep saving it, Dad will support you. I looked seriously at the amount in the bank book. To me, it was an astronomical number. Dad, you and Mom should keep this for retirement. He took a drink, then gave me a thumbs up. Son-in-law, you're this. From the day you got out of prison until now, you've been such a good kid. I think of you as my own son. You know that, right? I nodded. I know. You can't bring money into this world, and you can't take it with you when you leave. Leaving it to my son is enough. Then my mother-in-law came over. Listen to your dad. We're family. Don't keep calculating gains and losses between us. She took the bank book and pressed it into my hand. I fell silent again. That was when I finally understood why Qingqi was so kind and understanding. She really had grown up in such a wonderful family. My nose turned red with shame. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. I'll take good care of both of you. I quit the restaurant. On my last day, the boss's wife wiped away tears and said to me, Xu Yi, heaven really has no eyes. Why does it keep hurting kind people? If you ever run into trouble, remember to come find your sister. I'll help you. All I could say was, thank you. Later, I combined the money my father-in-law gave me with the money Brother Liu had given me and opened a small restaurant. I sold rice noodles, wontons, rice bowls, and things like that. The sign said, Zhu's Snacks. The place was small, with only a little over 10 seats. At first, I ran it alone. My daily profit was about 80 yuan. Don't underestimate that 80 yuan. In 2000, a day laborer at a construction site made only around 30 yuan a day. I made as much as 2.5 construction laborers, which was pretty good. Altogether, I could make around rates 500 yuan a month, 3 times what I used to earn as a cook. At that pace, I could save a lot of money. After running the place for 7 or 8 months, business got even better because I used good ingredients and never cut corners. By then, I was making more than 3,000 yuan a month. I worked with real energy back then. Then, in September 2000, the third disaster came. The man whose kidney I had ruptured that night in 1993 showed up again after 7 years. His name was Song Rentu. He looked much older and fatter, with a shaved head. That day, he came into my restaurant alone, looked over the menu, and ordered a bowl of the house special wontons. At first I didn't recognize him, but when I brought his wontons to the table, he recognized me. "You look familiar," he said. That was when I finally recognized him too, but I lowered my head and stayed quiet. The most important thing when running a small business is getting along with people. You can't cause trouble. "Yeah," I said. "Long time no see. The wontons are best while they're hot. They're the specialty here." "I'm afraid they're too hot," Song Rento said coldly. "Your connections are pretty impressive. Even after all this time, I still ran into you. Because of you, I lost a kidney. I'm sorry." "That's it." "Sorry. Do you know what it feels like to live with one kidney? My lower back hurts every few days. You did this to me. It was my fault, but I spent 4 years in prison too. Doesn't that make us even?" "Even my ass." He flung his hand out and smashed the bowl of wontons on the floor. Then he pointed at my shop. "Now that I've found you, if I let you keep this place open, then my name isn't Song Rentu." With that, he turned and left. The next morning, business was actually okay when I opened for breakfast. But close to noon, I saw Song Rentu walk in with a group of people. They brought a deck of cards and started playing in my restaurant. Whenever a customer came near them, they chased the customer away. I stood in my tiny kitchen, completely helpless. All I could do was keep wrapping wontons. That afternoon, Song Rento and his people played cards for hours. They had no intention of leaving. I thought about calling the police, but I didn't own a cell phone back then, and there wasn't even a landline in the shop. So I stayed in the kitchen and kept telling myself that maybe, if I ignored them, they'd get bored and leave eventually. But the next day they came even earlier. They arrived at around 8 in the morning with 2 cases of beer, sunflower seeds, peanuts, and mahjong tiles. They turned my restaurant into a damn game room. And just like that, they played mahjong all day and didn't leave until 9 p.m. I didn't dare tell my father-in-law. I was afraid he'd worry. I thought that once Song Rentu got over his anger, it would all end. But for more than 10 days straight, Song Rento came to my shop every single day. I honestly started wondering if these people didn't need to work or eat. Later, I asked around and found out that Song Rento was the spoiled son of a wealthy family. His family had money, connections, and plenty of relatives in powerful positions. He was a rich kid who never had to worry about food or money. When I heard that, I felt hopeless. I knew I couldn't beat him. So I reported it to the police in advance, hoping they'd come the next day and drive them out. The next day, the police really did come. After giving Song Rentu and his people a warning, they left with smiles on their faces. But as soon as the police were gone, Song Rento suddenly appeared again with the same group. He pointed at my nose. "Kid, calling the police is useless. We haven't actually done anything. The cops can't touch us." That was when I understood something. It's not just scary when a bad person is bad. It's terrifying when a bad person also knows the law. I hated myself for never studying. If I had studied, I wanted to become a good person who understood the rules too. I looked at my bank book. Between ingredients and rent, I was losing 60,000 yuan a month. At that point, I wanted to shut the shop down. But if I closed it, what would I tell my parents-in-law? I couldn't exactly say Song Rentu had ruined my business. They were straightforward people. What if they went looking for him and got into a conflict? A person like Song Rentu was someone we absolutely couldn't afford to offend. My parents-in-law weren't in good health. If anything happened to them because of this, how could I ever face Qingqi? After thinking it over and over, I decided to pretend to be sick for a few days. I thought that if I kept the shop closed, Song Rentu might forget about me. But I was wrong. I was lying in bed when someone knocked on the door. I picked up Shuyun and went to answer it. Then I heard that familiar voice. Does the owner of Shu's Snacks live here? Why wasn't the shop open today? My mother-in-law thought he was a regular customer, so she greeted him with a smile. My son-in-law is sick. I rushed out of the room. Song Rentu, what are you doing? He looked at me. You don't look sick. Why isn't the shop open? I didn't dare say I was closing it. I'll open it. Right now. What do you want to eat? I'll go make it for you. Song Rentu immediately looked pleased. Oh, perfect. I feel restless if I don't sit in your shop for a day. My son-in-law is a great cook. my mother-in-law said warmly. Everything he makes tastes good. Thank you for supporting his business. I forced a smile at her, then shut the door and glared at Song Rentu. What exactly do you want? I don't want anything. I just want to watch you lose money. This shop has to stay open every day. If you close for even one day, I'll come to your house. You're leaving me no way out. I really can't keep this place going. I'm losing 20,000 yuan a month. I might not even make that much from working outside for half a year. No matter how much money you lose, can it make up for the 7 or 8 miserable years I've had? Then what do you want? Take one of my kidneys? I checked. Our blood types don't match, so I can't use yours. Otherwise, I would have taken it a long time ago. With a cold snort, Song Rento turned and walked away. So I was forced to keep the shop open. One afternoon, Song Rento lost a lot of money playing cards. In a fit of anger, he flipped the table and chased everyone out. The shop was a mess. Tables and chairs were knocked over everywhere. I sat in the kitchen and didn't bother cleaning anything up. It felt like there was a fire burning inside my chest. After everyone else left, Song Rento was alone in the restaurant. It had been more than a month by then. No one came to my place anymore, so there were barely any customers. Maybe he was bored. He called into the kitchen. That woman I saw that day, was she your mother-in-law? I didn't answer. You have a kid, right? So where's your wife? I haven't seen her once this whole time. I still didn't answer. Song Rento got angry and shouted, You don't have to say it. I know your wife is dead. I saw a funeral portrait at your house that day. What a short-lived woman. If you ask me, you were the one who got her killed. You brought bad luck to her. I couldn't take it anymore. My anger wiped out every bit of reason I had left. I grabbed a wooden stick and swung it at his head. The moment he took that hit, Song Rentu realized I was serious and ran outside. He ran and I chased him. More than a month of pent-up rage exploded all at once. He ran all the way to the road, flagged down a car, and jumped inside. I stood there watching the car drive away. Song Rentu rolled down the window and shouted, Shu Yi, just wait! I'm reporting you right now. This is your second offense. Let's see how many years you get this time. The moment I heard that, I snapped awake. I dropped to my knees and started thinking. If I got locked up again, I could get 10 years. 10 years without seeing my son. 10 years unable to take care of my parents-in-law. How could I explain that to Qingqi? I regretted it deeply. But regret was useless. Then, I remembered the business card Brother Liu had given me at the hospital. He had told me I could come find him if I ever needed help. So, I rushed home, found the card in a drawer, and took a taxi to the karaoke club listed on it. I went inside and told the manager I was Shu Yi. The moment he heard my name, he took me to a huge office. Brother Liu looked surprised when he saw me. What happened? I told him everything that had happened recently. Brother Liu didn't seem too concerned. He just patted my shoulder. I'll handle it. Then he made a phone call. The person on the other end sounded like one of Song Rento's relatives. After only a few words, Brother Liu hung up. It's settled, he told me. I stared at him. It's over? Brother Liu nodded. It's over. Go home without worrying. The police won't come for you, and Song Rento won't show up at your restaurant again. How did you do that? Song Rento's older brother and I go way back. His brother has heard your story too, and he respects you. So he gave Song Rento a lesson. I felt like I was dreaming. One phone call, and I didn't have to go to prison. While I was still lost in thought, Brother Liu made me another offer. Brother, I really respect you. You know business, and you have loyalty. Someone like you is perfect to have at my side. Come work for me. I won't treat you badly. But I refused him again. I'm sorry, Brother Liu. My wife is gone. All I have left are my parents-in-law and my son. I'm the pillar of this family now. I can't take risks. Brother Liu nodded like he understood. That's fine. What I did this time was a small favor. It can't settle the debt I owe your wife. If you run into trouble again, come find me. I'll still help. After thanking him again, I went home. The next day, the police still didn't come to my house. My parents-in-law had no idea what happened. I thought the whole thing was over, but it wasn't. I reopened the shop, worked all day, and didn't sell a thing. At first, I thought people would come back once the commotion died down. But days passed, and there was still no business. I asked the owners of nearby shops and finally found out why. What had happened at my restaurant had spread throughout the neighborhood. People asked around about me and found out I had been to prison for assault. Now everyone knew. Nobody dared eat at my place. They all thought a restaurant run by an ex-con had to be some kind of shady place. I had nothing to say. I could only keep quiet and open the shop every day. But there was still no business. That went on for a while until I finally accepted reality. The shop couldn't survive. Without discussing it with my family, I closed it down. Then I quietly went to see the boss's wife from my old restaurant. "Boss, are you hiring?" But she said, "I want to help you, I really do. But if I hire you, no one will come eat at my restaurant either." She didn't need to say anything else. She was a good person. I left quietly. When I got home, I told my father-in-law and mother-in-law everything. They were both stunned. My father-in-law slammed his hand on the table. "It's been 7 years. How can someone still be like this?" I shook my head and handed the bank book back to him. "Dad, the shop can't stay open. Everything I earned before is gone. And I've even lost a few thousand from the money in this bank book. After a while, I'll go out and see if I can find work. If I can't, I'll go work construction." My father-in-law thought for a moment, then accepted the bank book. "Here's what we'll do. Tomorrow, I'll ask the leaders at my factory for a favor. I'll see if I can get you a job there." There was no other option. My father-in-law called in favors at the factory. I didn't have great qualifications, but afterward, he acted like it was no big deal. On the way home, he told me not to worry. "It's a sure thing." Seeing how confident he was, I relaxed and waited at home for news. A few days later, the factory called. I thought they were calling to say I had been hired. But instead, I heard something else. My father-in-law had suffered a stroke and had been taken to the hospital. My mother-in-law and I rushed there with Shuyun. When I saw my father-in-law in the hospital bed, his mouth twisted to one side. I immediately asked one of his co-workers what had happened. "It was because of your job," the worker said. "Master Lee gave the factory leaders 20,000 yuan to arrange work for you. It was supposed to be guaranteed. But on the day of the interview, the deputy factory director saw you." I didn't understand. "What does the deputy director have to do with me?" "You don't have anything to do with him. But he has something to do with Song Rento. Our deputy director's surname is Song. Song Rento is his nephew. The deputy director had the factory reject you. Then he had Master Lee fired too. Master Lee went to argue with the factory leaders about it. In the middle of arguing, he had a stroke. Song Rento. Again. Why wouldn't that bastard leave me alone? I wanted to go confront him. But before I could leave the hospital room, my father-in-law called out to me in a slurred voice. Son-in-law. That one word kept me where I was. I knew what he meant. I had already failed this family once. I couldn't cause trouble again. I lowered my head and went back to his bedside. "Dad, I understand. I'm sorry. I can't provoke Song Rento anymore. I just hope he leaves me alone from now on. I really can't afford to fight him. Song Rento was truly powerful. His brother was a big name on the streets. His uncle was a deputy factory director. Who knew how many other relatives he had? I had always thought powerful family clans belonged to the old world. I thought everyone in this new era was just an ordinary person. Turns out I was wrong because I hadn't studied enough. Those powerful families still existed. They just looked different from what I imagined. Putting all that aside, my mother-in-law had to care for Shuyun and look after my father-in-law. The responsibility of earning money fell entirely on me. I needed a job, but where could I find work that paid enough and was willing to hire me? After thinking it over, I realized the only person willing to take me in now was Brother Liu. I thought about how I had rejected him twice before, and I found it almost laughable. Turns out having no choice was a choice too. That night, nervous as I was, I finally said it to Brother Liu. "I need money. My family has nothing left. I know you own a lot of businesses. Find me a job that pays well and isn't too dangerous. I'll manage it properly." In the end, Brother Liu asked me to manage a nightclub with more than 80 hostesses. I told my family. They didn't want me doing that kind of work. My father-in-law even cried. He was so upset that he couldn't look at me, only making unclear sounds as he tried to say no. But I truly had nowhere else to go. I knelt beside his hospital bed and bowed my head to the floor. "Dad, trust me one more time. I'll hold this family together. Life is hard," he said with tears in his eyes. "Yes," I said, wiping my own tears. "Life is hard." My father-in-law's stroke wasn't something that could be treated quickly. And Shuyun was still little, so he got sick easily. Taking a child to the hospital cost even more than taking an adult. 6 months later, I was managing the nightclub well. I led a team of employees. There were no bad debts in the business, and every loan we gave out got collected. The only downside was that the club didn't make as much as it had under the previous manager. I thought Brother Liu would be unhappy, but when he divided up territories later, he gave me 2 more nightclubs and a bar. At the time, I couldn't understand why. Then Brother Liu gave me a long explanation. That was when I realized just how far apart our thinking was. Later, when I had the chance to do business on my own, I knew I had to learn from him. By 2004, I had worked under Brother Liu for 3 years. I was already managing all of his legitimate businesses. He trusted me so much that he even transferred those businesses into my name. My savings had passed 1 million yuan long ago. But no matter who I became outside, at home, I was still my parents-in-law's son-in-law and Shu Yun's father. My father-in-law had been discharged the year before. Now he stayed home with my mother-in-law and helped raise Shu Yun. I bought the family a new 200 square meter apartment. All the furniture was new, especially the TV. I knew my father-in-law loved watching television, so I specifically bought a 72-inch one. I also hired a helper for the house. Whenever I had free time at home, I cooked for my parents-in-law myself. I only wanted them to have a peaceful old age. Shu-won was 3 years old. I had recently started looking at kindergartens for him. With life turning out like this, I didn't know whether I had done enough to face Qingqi. In September that same year, the city suddenly launched a major crackdown on organized crime and corruption. Because the businesses under my name were clean, I wasn't targeted. Brother Liu, however, was arrested over his gray area businesses. In March 2005, he was sentenced to 18 years in prison. At the time, I used every connection I had to get a message to him in prison that Brother Liu, everything on my side is fine. When you get out, all these businesses will still be yours. I truly meant it then. But I never got the chance to wait for him. In July 2005, news came from inside. Brother Liu had been stabbed to death in prison. But the other 11 people in his cell all denied doing it. The prison couldn't figure out who was responsible. In the end, they simply disciplined everyone in the cell and let the matter fade away. When I heard the news, I was completely stunned. I started asking around. An informant told me Brother Liu had been transferred to another cell once. It seemed like someone had bribed people to make it happen. I knew something was wrong. Without thinking too much, I gave the informant money. Investigate. Find out everything. The informant looked worried. This might not lead anywhere. And even if it does, are you sure you can afford to offend whoever's behind it? Investigate first, I said. We'll talk after you find out. After taking the money, the informant began asking around everywhere. Brother Liu had been loyal, but he had plenty of enemies too. I didn't know who had killed him, and I couldn't find out. Still, when I thought about everything Brother Liu had done for me, I knew I had to repay him. Even if I couldn't uncover the truth, I wondered what else I could do for him. Brother Liu didn't have much family. After asking around, I discovered he had a younger brother named Liu Feng. Liu Feng had been imprisoned for something years ago and was about to be released. To repay Brother Liu's kindness, I decided to take care of his brother. On the day Liu Feng got out, I took people to pick him up and told him everything that had happened. Liu Feng had already learned about his brother's death in prison. He just hadn't expected that there would still be someone like me. I told Liu Feng that I could hand all the businesses over to him. But he didn't understand management, so he refused. And since he had just gotten out, he didn't need much money. So I bought Liu Feng an apartment and helped him settle in first. Later, he saw my car and offered to become my driver. At first, I didn't want that. He was Brother Liu's younger brother. How could I let him drive for me? But Liu Feng said, if I just eat for free and don't work, people will eventually get sick of me. If I'm going to follow you, I need something to do. He had a point. So Liu Feng became my driver. After that, I continued running the more legitimate businesses. Maybe Brother Liu's death hit me harder than I realized. For a while, I looked at everyone and felt like none of them were good people. Once the crackdown began to die down, I reorganized my people and started expanding again. This time, I didn't just want the clean businesses. I wanted a hand in the dirty ones too. I slowly rebuilt the businesses Brother Liu had lost when they were seized. To do that, we used some violent methods. Liu Feng handled all of it. I never let my family find out. Over those years, I noticed that I was taking bigger risks and using harsher methods. But whenever I turned around and asked myself if I was wrong, deep down, I didn't think I was. Just like Brother Liu once told me, making money wasn't shameful. I wasn't just supporting one family anymore. I was responsible for the livelihoods of hundreds of people under me. By 2007, I had taken control of businesses across 2 districts in the city center. That was also when I sensed the climate changing again. It seemed like there would be another heavy-handed crackdown from above. If things continued like this, I might soon end up following Brother Liu's path. But more importantly, Shu-wen was already 7 years old. He was beginning to understand things. I was terrified that one day, he would find out what kind of person his father really was. I didn't want him to become like me, so I decided to clean up my life. At the time, real estate was booming wildly. It was also an industry with a relatively low entry barrier. I started selling off the businesses in my name to build up cash and prepare for a new beginning. By the end of 2007, I had gathered a lot of capital. But because I had no education, I was extra cautious about entering a completely new field. One day, I picked up a contract at a bidding meeting. When I took it to a lawyer, I found out it had more than 10 loopholes and traps. Those people were taking advantage of the fact that I wasn't educated. I thought of Song Rento again. I wanted to become someone like him, someone with methods who understood the rules. But I knew I would probably never become that person. I didn't know how to study, so I decided to find someone who could handle things for me. But someone who understood the law and also shared my values was hard to find. Then one day, a manager told me there was a man named Shubin working at one of the bars under me. I went there right away to meet him. Shubin looked young and refined. I casually tossed him a copy of that contract and asked him to find the problems. I waited half an hour. It was worth the wait. The issues he pointed out were exactly the same ones the professional lawyer had found. That was enough for me. I knew he was the person I needed. I hired him as my secretary to handle contracts and similar work. Once the preparations were mostly in place, I officially entered the real estate business. At first, I thought the industry was clean, but after being in it for a while, I realized it wasn't. I ran into many old acquaintances from the streets. The methods they used were ruthless. Trying to take a piece of the pie from them was harder than climbing to the sky. But I had already sold off all my businesses. I couldn't let that money sit around and rot. So I gave the land acquisition work to Liu Feng. I told him, as long as it can't be traced back to us, do what you need to do. Liu Feng completed the job well. With Liu Feng and Shubin helping me, I acquired a lot of land. The business kept growing. By 2009, I had made a lot of money. The first thing I did was build my own company headquarters. I named it Xu Yun Group. When the group building was completed in 2010, I sat in the chairman's office feeling pretty good. After all, I finally had a building that belonged to me. But bad news started piling up one after another, and it made me furious. During that period, almost nobody under me brought me good news. Several projects under Xu Yun Group were ordered to stop construction, and were fined by government departments shortly after development began. Later, we sent people to reapply for construction permits, but the staff handling the permits suddenly raised every standard to the absolute highest level. My employees went several times and still couldn't get the approvals. At first I found it strange. Every project had money set aside to handle relationships. So why were so many problems appearing? I called Liu Feng in and told him to find out exactly what was going on. Later, Liu Feng took some of the officials who regularly came to cause trouble at our construction sites out for a meal. That was when he learned their department had a new leader sent in from above to oversee that area. And this leader seemed to have some kind of grudge against Xu Yun Group, because he kept ordering his people to keep a close eye on us. And guess what? This leader was named Song Danming, another damn relative of Song Rento. How many relatives did Song Rento have who could come after me? I completely lost it. Go investigate, I shouted at Liu Feng. Every relative Song Rento has. His father's side, his mother's side, every last one. Find them all. I want to know what kind of hidden family clan they really are. Liu Feng didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a photograph and a letter. The photograph showed a grave with a carved headstone in front of it. The name on it belonged to the informant I had hired 2 years earlier. I opened the letter and read it carefully. Brother Xu, 2 years ago, you asked my husband to investigate something for you. He found the truth, but he was afraid that if he told you then, the other side would trace it back to him. He planned to wait 2 years before telling you. But somehow, they found out my husband was investigating them. They hired someone to drive drunk and kill him. The drunk driver only received 2 years in prison. I have no one else to ask. When that person gets out, can you make him disappear? I'm begging you. Reading that letter raised countless questions in my mind. Liu Feng answered them all. This was written by the informant's wife. You asked that informant to investigate my brother's death. He found out the truth, but he was afraid of getting into trouble, so he planned to tell you a few years later. So who killed your brother? Song Rento. He held a grudge against my brother for standing up for you when Song Rento was causing trouble. After that, he kept looking for chances to hurt him. When my brother got arrested, it was Song Rento who reported his businesses. And after my brother went to prison, Song Rento arranged people in a particular cell and bribed someone to transfer my brother there. That's how my brother died. My mind was a mess. I covered my eyes and thought for a long time. Maybe a person like Song Rento, once he hated someone, would cling to them for the rest of his life. He had been after me for 17 years. 17 whole years. How was that still not enough? I took a deep breath and leaned back in my chair. Liu Feng, do you know who killed your brother in that cell? I do. Do you know where the drunk driver who killed my informant is imprisoned, and when he'll be released? I do. Do you know where Song Rentu lives? I do. Good, I said. Handle it. That day, I put on a new suit and got my hair done specially, making myself look more like a successful businessman. Then I picked up the 5-centimeter thick bidding document on my desk and went to see Song Danming. I walked straight to his office, pushed the door open, and shut it behind me. Song Danming looked at me. Who are you? I smiled. You've forgotten me already. Not long ago, you had people shut down projects under my group. Song Danming looked completely calm. He even opened his thermos, took a sip of hot tea, and said, So you're Shu Yi? I nodded, then sat in front of him with an eager smile and placed the bidding document on his desk. He glanced at the words on the cover and laughed dismissively. I'm not bidding on anything. Don't say that. Open it and take a look. He turned to the first page. The moment he saw it, his face changed. The first page contained information about everyone in his family. Names, ages, birthdays, jobs, schools. The way he looked at me was no longer calm. Don't stop there, I said. Turn to the next page. He turned to the second page. The text on this page was smaller because there was more information to fit in. It listed 3 generations of relatives centered around Song Rentu. I had specifically highlighted the jobs of everyone important in Song Rentu's family. Business owners, government officials, university professors, relatives living abroad. The size and status of that family really were on a completely different level from mine. The third page is even more interesting, I said. At that moment, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Song Danming panicked and quickly closed the document. I stood up, took his hand, and helped him turn to the third page. That page listed the things Song Rentu had done over the years. Most were smaller offenses, but there were several major ones too. He had harassed multiple young women, and later claimed it had been consensual. He had framed other people for crimes, causing many of them to be punished. Any one of those cases could have been serious. Song Danming was clearly scared now. I pressed forward. The Song family is a big family. Both the older generation and the younger generation have done well. But somehow, you ended up with someone like Song Rentu. To put it bluntly, one rat dropping ruins the whole pot of soup. Song Danming took a deep breath, trying to look calm. What exactly do you want? Keep turning. He flipped through several more pages. They were blank. He looked at me confused. I made a gesture with my fingers, telling him to keep going. After turning dozens of pages, he found several hollowed-out sections in the middle of the document. Inside them were 4 100-gram gold bars. Song Danming's face changed again. What do you mean by this? I took out my phone, called Liu Feng, and handed the phone to Song Danming. He put it to his ear. Liu Feng's voice came through. Say something. Then another voice came on. It was Song Rentu. Help me, save me. They've locked me up for days. Save me. Song Danming's face went green. Song Rentu? What happened to you? Where are you? I waved my hand, and Song Danming realized his voice was too loud. Shu Yi, he said. What do you want? I didn't answer. I simply pushed the document with the gold bars closer to him. Sir, Song Rentu and I met in 1993. He was touching my wife and harassing her. I was young and stupid then, so I ruptured one of his kidneys. Later, I spent 4 years in prison. That should have settled things. But in the 3rd year after I got out, I opened a small restaurant. He brought people in to destroy my business. He forced me to close, and he ruined my reputation. After that, I closed the restaurant and planned to get a job. But not one business in that area would hire me. Then my father-in-law took his savings and begged the leaders at his factory to arrange a job for me. But Song Rentu had his uncle, the deputy factory director, which is you, reject me. You also had my father-in-law fired. That caused him to suffer a cerebral hemorrhage, and he ended up hospitalized with a stroke. At that time, I had elderly parents to care for, a child to raise, no money, and no work. He forced me onto this road. During the crackdown, he targeted me by getting my big brother arrested. Then he arranged people in prison and made my brother disappear. And now, after I finally built my company into something big, he got you to come after me too. Of course, I know there's no personal grudge between you and me. Song Rentu must have begged you repeatedly. Because he's family, you couldn't refuse, so you only had to lift a finger to make my life difficult. So I locked him up. I held him for a few days, then had people gather all this information. But you tell me, sir, Song Rentu is too spiteful, too terrifying. He spent 17 years constantly taking revenge on me. Can a person like that really not scare you? If it were you, could you tolerate it? I can't anymore. I came here today to discuss cooperation. I know the Song family has money, and you probably don't care about this little amount. But in my opinion, Song Rento is worth exactly this much. The Song family has so many excellent, accomplished descendants, but he's the one beast among them. If you keep protecting him, one day, he'll drag your entire family down with him. You've seen all the terrible things he's done over the years. If this gets exposed, what happens to the Song family? So now, I'm giving you a choice. A friend you can work with for a long time, or a relative who ruins your family's reputation. Which one will you choose? Song Danming couldn't speak for a long time. He put on the expression of a leader deep in serious thought. I told him, no matter what you choose, I'll support you. If you choose your relative, I'll have Song Rentu released immediately. But I can't guarantee the safety of the other Song family members, or the secrecy of many things connected to the Song family. But if you choose me as your friend, I'll repay you well from now on. Whatever you say, I'll listen. As for whether Song Rentu disappears or not, I'll leave that decision to you. Song Danming was covered in sweat. He looked like he was struggling fiercely inside. Song Rentu is my older brother's son. Don't worry. Heaven knows, Earth knows, and I know. We'll simply treat Song Rentu as missing. Your older brother will never find out. My brother is good at this work. Choose with confidence. Song Danming lowered his head and looked at the gold bars. Then he quietly closed the document and took another deep breath. Shuyun Group's rectification work has been done very well. I'll take the detailed proposal back and study it. I hope we can establish a long-term cooperative relationship in the future. I smiled and nodded. Then I switched the phone to speaker mode and said to Liu Feng, "Did you hear that? The leader has spoken." Immediately, the sound of someone struggling desperately came through the phone. It lasted for a few minutes. Then it went silent. Only then did the call end. "Thank you for your guidance, sir." With that, I turned and walked out. In the years after Song Rento disappeared, everything went smoothly for me. After all, I had the recording of Song Danming agreeing to let me get rid of Song Rento. From then on, we were tied to the same rope. We used each other, and neither of us could break free from the other. With him clearing the way for me, how could I not thrive? More than 10 years later, my businesses had spread across the country, and my net worth had reached hundreds of billions. Xu Yun also did well for himself. After returning from studying abroad, he took only 3 years to get his own company listed. In the years that followed, his momentum nearly surpassed the group I had built with my own hands. On New Year's Eve in 2025, the huge living room was full of life. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, Liu Feng, Xu Bin, my son, and his girlfriend were all there. But I sat alone in the bedroom. I wore the scarf Qingqi had knitted for me and held the handkerchief she had given me. As I gently touched her photograph, I whispered, "Qingqi, I did everything you asked me to do."